What's up, beloveds? It's your girl, Rachel Ricketts, author, alchemist, spiritual abolitionist, inspiring love and liberation. And today I want to talk about autism. April is Autism Awareness Month, but as we all know, we should be raising awareness, acknowledging and honoring autism and all forms of disability 24/7, 365. But in this particular foolishness of a month around the ish happening in the United States of America regarding autism, I felt more compelled, let's say, than ever to share my experience. So, hi, my name's Rachel. I'm autistic. I'm a late diagnosed autistic, queer, black, gender expansive femme. And I was diagnosed last year. And I'm just going to share a little bit about my story. I am not going to honor or give any energy or time to the conversation about autism as a disease. Just nope. But I do think it's important to share my story because other people sharing their stories, specifically other queer Black folks, femmes, women, sharing their stories is what supported me being able to really like hone in on what was going on for me. So, and really important for folks, listen, you have someone in your life who is autistic, okay? And it's really important not only for those of us who know we are or suspect we might be, but it's really important for like the people around us to really start learning and understanding. So this is for autistic folks and this is for holistic folks. Hi, welcome. Glad you're here. I think I really just want to say that there's no way for autism to be or for autism to look. She's gorgeous. She's blackety black. She's queer. She's neurotypical and neurospicy in other ways. She's brilliant. She was a high-powered corporate lawyer. She's deeply spiritual. She's an oracle and a channeler. And I am autistic. And, one of the most famous sayings that I love, when you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. Can't really group us into any particular way, shape, or form, just like you can't group Black folks or queer folks or femmes or women or gender expansive beings into one particular silo. Same goes for us. So I'm not going to do any of that. But I am going to just unpack a little bit about my journey because I know it will be supportive to someone, many people, most likely. So I had suspected for a while that I maybe was somewhere on the spectrum. But because getting tested or assessed was like a really expensive venture, like when I was Googling it, it was like thousands of dollars. And I was like, yeah, I don't have that. And also, I had zero interest in being assessed or going through a formal process with a bunch of white people in white coats because no. My ancestors said no. My parents and like family line said no. All the cells of my body were like uninterested because I didn't and don't trust that white people in white lab coats are going to be able to clock correctly how my beautiful brain works, and also that they're not going to like use it against me, as a form of eugenics, as we're seeing now. So all of those things really like were a no for me when I initially looked into it. I have felt a deep sense of difference since I was newborn. And, I was a Black girl raised in a predominantly white, wealthy space. And so I attributed like the majority of that difference and isolation and lack of belonging to my Blackness. And then as I became conscious of my queerness, more conscious of my queerness, I should say, maybe, then I was like, oh, and being Black and queer. And then, oh, and being Black and queer and gender expansive. Like those are all experiences and identities that would naturally lend to feeling othered in status quo spaces. Um, and even after years of really like being with all of that, I still was like, nah, because even in spaces with other queer, black, gender expansive beings, there's like this real difference happening, and I didn't know how to name it. And so really what was coming up for me a lot that ultimately led to me seeking diagnosis was like relational rupture and um yeah, just a sense of like something else is happening here that I'm not able to really get a proper sense of, and I want a better understanding of myself so I can understand like myself and others and what's going on via communication in my relationships, which is often where things get a little bit hairy. So that was sort of the impetus. And then, like I said, seeing more people who looked like me, who moved like me, who had experiences like mine, who were sharing their experiences of getting diagnosed, whether that's or being self-diagnosed as autistic, really helped me understand, like, okay, this is something I really should look into for myself. And so early last year, yeah, like January 2024, I'd done enough research and had enough experience from really beautiful creators online who were sharing their experiences to know for myself to self-diagnose as autistic. Um, and that felt really good in my body. I told my friends, I was like, hey, I'm like 99.9% sure that I'm autistic. I'm going to claim that for myself and see how that feels and see what happens for me and my relationships when I claim that for myself, and like call the people in my life to support me in that claiming of that diagnosis. And then after a few months of like having this conversation with people and really like trying it on and seeing how it felt in my body to claim it for myself, um a friend brought up that there was a queer melanated therapist who was ADHD, autistic, and had ADHD, who could support me in an assessment and could help me with like an assessment with a psychologist and then through a like formal medical diagnosis with a psychiatrist if I chose to go down that route. And and actually I found another psychiatrist of color as well, and no one was black, unfortunately, but um some East Asian folks. And so I had a couple interviews and like really leaned into my intuition and gut and who I felt I could trust and like who felt right in my body. And so I ultimately went with the psychologist with ADHD, and we did like clinical assessment, him and I, and that was positive, which I didn't actually think it was going to be. I was like, I think the way that my autism works because of my other identities and my other experiences, and I have complex PTSD. Um, yeah, I was like, I don't think that this is going to be clocked in any sort of like regular clinical DSM type way. And on our assessment, it actually was, and I was quite surprised. And then we had the conversation about whether to proceed to an assessment with a psychiatrist. And for me, I decided that two things. One, because I had the support of a queer ADHD psychologist of color who would be supporting me through the process. And by supporting me through the process, I mean they were the interface um, for the entire assessment. And then they were on the call with me, with the psychiatrist, who was a white woman, and the psychologist, the queer ADHD person of color, psychologist of color, already had experience with that psychiatrist. And I told this is going to get tricky now. I told the psychologist my concerns about a formal medical psychiatric assessment, and we talked through that, and I trusted them enough, and they felt secure enough with the concerns that I had, that this person that they had like kind of pre-vetted would be sufficiently safe. Not safe, but sufficiently safe to do the assessment with. And again, they were going to be on this call virtual like a medical assessment with me. So they knew my concerns, I knew my concerns, and I had someone there to support me in case, I was like, ooh, actually this isn't working, or like there are things that I need support with on the call. So that was one big reason why I did. And then the second big reason why I went through with a medical assessment is because I have gaslit myself my entire life. I've been gaslit my entire life for the needs that I have, for my sensory needs, for my other needs. And I just felt like getting a formal medical diagnosis would be of most support to me, because it would just really, anytime I was going to start going into like, do you really, like gaslighting myself, this would help me not do that, or at a minimum do it less. 11 as I say that. So that's why I went through the process. I don't believe by any I already knew, though. Here's the thing. I already knew I was autistic. I'd done my own research. I had tried it on and it felt right and good. In my conversations with friends, that felt right and good and made sense. They started offering support based on information I was sharing with them that felt right and good. So like I was like, I don't need a medical diagnosis to tell me I'm autistic. I get this is nuanced, right? Really? Like, I'm like, I already know. I think what I really needed was like the ultimate affirmation and confirmation for me, so that to support me, because I know myself well enough to know um, that I was likely to gaslight myself or allow for other people to gaslight or invalidate my needs if I didn't go like the whole way, just to be unequivocal about like, these are my needs. I am autistic. It's not up for debate. But if you are someone who feels sufficiently confident in that with your self-diagnosis, then bet you don't need a medical diagnosis at all. Or again, there's like different levels. You can self-diagnose, and then you can do a clinical assessment. All of this will depend on where you are, by the way. I'm in Toronto, Canada, so it's different depending on where you are, but this is what was available to me. Self-diagnosis available to anyone. Clinical assessment with my queer ADHD of color psychologist, which, like, blessing that I was able to access him, because I wouldn't have done it with a white person. And then the medical assessment that I felt sufficiently safe doing, only because my queer ADHD of color psychologist was navigating that and entire process and on the actual assessment call with me to be my ally on that call. So that's why I did it. And I'm glad I did it. But again, I already knew, and I went into that assessment like, I know I have autism. So if she had said, no, you don't, I would have been like, you don't know what you're talking about. I knew I had autism. I just really needed it as confirmed as it possibly could be. And also, I just wanted to get some additional feedback and information. Yeah, and I'm glad that I did. But I am going to say, sorry, before I get into anything else, I also want to say the medical assessment with the psychiatrist I also did because the psychologist that I had told me about a process that we could go through, whereby the assessment itself with the psychiatrist is covered under OHIP, under Canadian insurance, which I had never heard of before. No one had told me that. Before, it was like you can pay out of pocket like thousands of dollars a psychiatrist to do this whole assessment with you, or you can self-diagnose, and like those are your two options. And like, y'all, I was an attorney. I know how to research, and those were the only options that I was finding, which is ridiculous. So I was blessed to find a psychologist who offered me an in-between option, which is like, we can do this clinical assessment, which isn't a formal medical diagnosis, whatever, but like it's more information for you. And then you can do this additional piece, which is the medical diagnosis with a psychiatrist, which the psychiatrist assessment part is covered under OHIP. The psychologist I had to pay out of pocket. for our sessions and for them to be in the assessment with me. But the actual psychiatrist, I didn't have to pay for. So bless. And please, if you're in Ontario and you're interested, look that shit up because it's available. And I don't know why that information is not more readily available. I want to talk really quickly about my actual assessment, which with the psychiatrist, which was problematic. It was harmful. It did activate all of my like not being believed, which has been happening my entire life, and also activated my mother was chronically ill and disabled, and like activated all of our experiences of her not being believed. And my psychologist at the end of the day did have to go to bat for me to actually get the diagnosis of autism, because the psychiatrist, who was lovely but still white and still, you know, cis, straight, blah blah, all the things, um wasn't sure if it was autism or something else. And the something else to me, I'm not going to name it. The something else to me was her erroneous misinterpretation of my experiences as a queer Black Caribbean femme. So bless, like, thank God, Des, for my ADHD, for my Asian ADHD, queer ADHD psychologist, being on that, in that assessment with me, but I wouldn't have done it without them. But and I'm not going to take away from the fact that like it was traumatic. I was like quite upset after, and like but and had some sessions with my psychologist about unpacking that, because these systems are harmful, and like I'm not going to right, like RFK are not all of like medical systems, they're still institutions. The DSM is very problematic, and I have a psych degree, like I'm not just talking on my ass. And you know, so it's still harmful. But I am happy at the end of the day that I did it. I wasn't really happy right after, but at the end of the day, I am happy that I did it. One of the main reasons that I'm happy that I did it is because we also explored ADHD, which was like just not at all on my radar. And I'm glad that we did. Um, and I'm doing a follow up on that, because at the time we were like, we don't think I have it. And like almost a year later, I'm like, no, I actually really think I have it. I'm just high masking. Um, but I also received a diagnosis of giftedness, which just seems like it seems like just a great thing, but it's not. um, it comes with nothing is just great. Nothing is just good or bad. It comes with a whole host of other things, like impacting executive functioning, and also like that sense of alienation and not belonging, like I talked about earlier, is also a result of being gifted, because the majority of people I talk to like don't know what I'm saying, actually understand what I'm saying, and I have to basically mask all the time to to feel belonging in the status quo, which I'm giving up, but it's an experience I've had for a long time. Maybe you have too. A lot of spiritually gifted people who are here will resonate with that. Um, yeah, I think what I really want to say also is just to follow your heart and follow your gut, and know yourself. The reason I really wanted to go through with the process of learning whether I was autistic or not for myself was just so I, like I said, so I could know what my needs were, so I could share those needs with other people, because I'm worthy of having my needs affirmed and honored and met, and so do you. Whether you're autistic or not, you are worthy of that. But for those of us who have been basically conditioned, gaslit, berated, if not beaten into submission about what our needs are, especially I would say for high masking folks, especially I would say for queer high masking folks, Black high masking folks, let alone queer Black femme high masking folks, we are not believed. And we are labeled angry, difficult, high maintenance, uppity, bougie, you know, a whole host of labels that I've been labeled my whole life. I'm still labeled those things. And I thus put like gaslit myself. I labeled myself as those things and it impacted all of my relationships. And the label of autism for me, and it's just a label, like really what's happening is we're all incredibly neurocomplex people. I don't think there's really such a thing as neurotypical. We're all just conditioned to like behave in particular ways. But certain labels, I think, help support us have a deeper understanding of what's happening for us. And then we can affirm our needs. That's like the most important piece. Understand ourselves better and affirm what our needs are for ourselves and for other people. And for me, it's allowed me to be unequivocal about what my needs are. And that has helped my relationships. A lot of relationships, I should say a lot, relationships have had to end because I've realized that people can't meet those needs, and that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with people who can't meet my needs, but we can't be in right relationship. Because my needs are what my needs are, what my needs are, and my needs are reasonable, and my needs are fair, and my needs are mine, and they don't have to make sense to you, and sometimes they don't necessarily make sense to me, but they're my needs. And it isn't just about preference, right? This is another thing about being high masking is like it can just seem like, oh, can you turn the music down? Could just be like it's just like kind of bothering me. It isn't that. It's that it causes me distress, like deep distress that is lasting. So like being in an environment that um harms my sensory needs for like even a short period of time can have a long-term impact, especially because the entire world is like overwhelming to me sensorially like most of the time. Um so that's a piece I really want people to get, whether you are autistic, think you're autistic, or have autistic folks, or maybe have autistic folks in your life, is like the what I can say is the difference between folks who are autistic and allistic is like I think allistic folks cannot, in my experience, 220, 22, 22 as I'm saying this, and the fire's popping as I'm saying this. Okay, the one of the major differences is that like allistic folks have it might be impossible for y'all to have an understanding of how painful and distressing it is. I'll just talk about me in my body to have to endure experiences that harm my nervous system, whether it's like relational, whether it's environmental. It's just so incredibly painful. It makes me want to cry just talking about it. I can't even really explain it to you. And as someone who was checked out for most of my life because of PTSD, which in part is because I am autistic and have like been high masking and just trying to be normal most of my life. That causes fucking PTSD. I lost my train of thought. But because of that, or partially because of that, yeah, I was dissociated. So I could do a lot of things before that. It's just absolutely, completely, and utterly impossible for me to do now because I am embodied. I am checked the fuck in. I'm connected, and I know what actually causes me harm and distress. And I'm just not doing those things anymore. I am limiting those things as much as humanly possible, um, so that I can be well and happy and joyous because that's my birthright, and because me being well and happy and joyous supports me do what the fuck I was put on the planet to do, which is support liberation for all. Okay? And I can't do that when I'm so overwhelmed or in so much pain and distress that I can't do like the thing I came to the planet to do. So it's not selfish for me to be very unequivocal about my needs and my boundaries around my needs. And again, I think that's true whether you're autistic or not. But especially, if you're a spiritually gifted person, intuitive, empathic, HSP, like whatever you identify as, or not, for everyone, I think these are really important messages. This video is getting long, but I think there's one more thing I wanted to share. I think the world would be a better place. I think we would be more liberated personally as well as collectively if more of us were in tune with our needs, and if more of us felt sufficiently safe and free and welcome to share our needs, to be unabashed and unequivocal about what our needs actually are, and allow people the opportunity to meet them or not, and to not make anyone wrong, no one, not me or you, if we are not able to meet each other's needs. I think that is crucial to how the fuck we all get free, whether you're autistic or not. But I do think that autistic folks and other neurospicy folks are on the leading edge. We know this deeply and we practice it. And if you have autistic or other neurospicy folks in your life, we are inviting you, a lot of us, not all of us, can't speak for all of us, but a lot of us are inviting you in to radical honesty and transparency and truth telling and truth knowing and being your fullest, freakiest, flyest, authentic, aligned self, and letting the world see that. And that, my loves, is also critical and crucial to how we all get free. Knowing that you get to be whoever the fuck you are, knowing that your needs matter, knowing that you get to have your needs, you get to have them met, and that it's okay when folks can't meet them, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we also not suggesting that, like, if you can't meet my needs, I have to stay in relationships with people who can't meet my needs, because I've done that my whole life and it's caused me and a lot of people a whole lot of harm. We're not disposing of anyone. We're not canceling anyone, including ourselves. But if all of us are taking care of our needs, if all of us are tuned into what our needs are and we're taking care of our needs, it gives everyone more license and liberation to do that. And then we can do that more and more without making anyone wrong. Like, we just get to be who we are. We get to be who we are. We get to have the needs that we have. We get to love each other no matter what. We get to love our needs. We get to love each other. I get to love your needs even if I can't meet them or I don't understand them. I get to love myself and my needs no matter what. This shit is life-changing. This shit is earth-shifting. This shit is universe-blowing in the best way. And so we started on autism and we ended with, like, changing the world, and I think that's perfect. So I'm going to leave it there. This is my invitation to you. Whether you are autistic or not, whether you know you're autistic or not, think you're autistic or not, have autistic people in your life, which you probably do, or not, please take this message with you. And let's be in this conversation instead of the distracting conversation about whether autism and other disabilities are diseases. Like, I'm not saying to ignore it. I'm just saying that, like, that conversation is alive right now. Collectively, energetically, larger picture, that conversation is alive right now to show us the contrast, right? It is illuminating by virtue of its, like, not loveness. It is illuminating how much love and possibility there is when we allow for diversity, true diversity, and when we allow for authenticity, and when we allow for people to be themselves and be wholeheartedly anchored in who they are, which is why people are so fucking terrified of autistic people, in my personal opinion. Because we move different, and not all of us, again, but more and more of us are unabashed and unapologetic about who we are and the fact that we move different and want different. And also that a lot of us, again, not all of us, but a lot of us, like, are incredibly justice oriented, do not subscribe to hierarchies, could give a fuck, Like we're you can't we're less sheep like because that shit doesn't make sense. Not all of us, again, but a lot of us. And the status quo doesn't want any of that. So I don't know. I think I think I think we're all exactly where we need to be. And the conversations that are happening in the United States of America about autism are terrifying. Absolutely. But and I think we can shift that terror into illumination and really like flip the script and use it to start leading with more love and use that to really start changing the world. All right, all right, y'all. That was a lot. Thank you for being here. Thank you for staying. If you listened to the whole download, um, I love you. I am you. More videos coming real soon. Until then, keep it real spiritual. And also, if you have any questions about my journey for yourself or for others, like please share this video or comment below. Also, please subscribe and like. It really just helps me get these important messages out in the world. So I appreciate it and you.